I'm living currently in Redmond, Washington, which is pretty much Seattle, but not quite. It's like just east.
That is a beautiful area.
Yes, it's very Twin Peaksy over here.
Yeah, now is Microsoft over there?
Yes. Yeah,
Yes.
we got all the big conglomerates and stuff. Yeah, my husband actually works for Microsoft, which is why we're here.
Very nice. Yeah, I had a close friend that lived over there and beautiful, beautiful area. I remember it being very lush
Yeah.
and green. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. I prefer the beauty of the recently tattered, put back together, pulling the comb through tangles of hair, turned to silk. Who wrote this poem? We're going to find out in a little bit. Hello, everyone. This is W, host of the High Art on the Edge page, host of Surprise Cast. Thank you for tuning in. We have another engaging episode. Today, I'm thrilled and honored to welcome the incredibly talented Lotte Kestner to the episode. Known for her sparkling, ethereal voice and captivating songwriting, she brings a unique blend of introspection and emotion to the pieces she creates. In this feature, we will delve into her musical journey, inspirations, poetry, and a whole lot more. Let us welcome Lotte Kestner to the program. Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good.
So it's great to finally meet you, and I'm very honored to have you on Surprise Cast. Before we begin in kind of your life's journey, I wanted to start off with a few icebreaker questions. How does that sound?
Good.
First one. Tell the listeners, Lott, if you could be an animal for one day, which would you choose and why?
Ooh. Well, I've always had people tell me that I remind them of a bird, which usually bothered me because I was like, it was just something about my face. But I think also just the whole songbird element of things. And since I moved to Redmond, I've become really into watching birds. Like we kind of live on a green belt where I put out a bird feeder and I kind of pretend like the towhees are our pets and stuff, and I talk to them. But my very favorite is the Stellar's jay, which whenever it comes, we all like gasp. Not that I'm saying that's, I'm just saying if I could be a bird, I would maybe pick that one because it's like so vividly blue and it's kind of mysterious and it gets to fly. So
great pick. Here is a piece of candy for you. This is a Twix bar for answering question number 1. Number 2, what would you pick if you could choose your very own superpower?
Probably it would have to be like physical healing superpower. Just, I can't stand to see the people that I care about being hurt. And I have some like lifelong injury things that I wish that I could zap away. So that would be my first pick for sure.
Here's a piece of candy number 2 for you. A Reese's. Final question. Lott, tell us an embarrassing moment that you experienced during elementary, middle, or high school.
Okay, well, I know what jumps to mind for that one. But it's kind of embarrassing, but then for some reason wasn't embarrassing at the time, I don't think. But it's one of the things that stays with me. I was a little super nerd kid as a child and did all the pentathlons, math competitions, handwriting contests and stuff. And I went to, I think it was at the math pentathlon. And we went to a high school and I was sitting in one of the little high school desks doing my math, whatever it was. And I really had to go to the bathroom, which is funny because I just asked you if I could pee before we started this. And I really had to pee, but I did not want to stop doing the math test.
Sure.
So I actually just peed in my chair. And it didn't go anywhere where anybody would see. It was like fully absorbed. So I finished my test. And afterwards, I remember I went to this girl, Frances, and I was like, did I just sit in a puddle or anything? Does my skirt look wet or anything? She's like, no. And I was like, cool. So at the time, I was like, cool, I totally got away with it. But now, when I saw the movie Magnolia, it was like brought up this traumatic memory of being on camera. So I did have that experience, but nobody knew. So I wasn't actually embarrassed other than like as an adult thinking back on the fact that I actually peed in my chair during a test. You
just used the operative words, nobody knew until now.
Right. Now everybody knows.
All right.
It's long ago enough that I'm not embarrassed about it anymore.
Yeah. So real quickly, tell the listeners from that experience, what do you think you learned from that? What did you gain?
Well, I mean, I always felt like it was kind of a tell of how competitive I am, one, but also that I guess my actual superpower maybe is that I can kind of push through things and nobody knows what I'm feeling. So there's been many times I've had panic attacks on stage. Okay. There's been, I performed a couple times with like a really, really awful nerve injury that was like, I want to die kind of injury. And we had just flown overseas with Damien Gerardo to sing backing vocals for him. And he's like my favorite. So I was like, I'm going to do this. The injury started on the plane and we played 3 shows before I had to stop and pull out and stay behind. But I've seen videos of myself on stage performing and knowing like it looks like I'm so serene. But actually, I was just like, what am I going to do with my life if this doesn't go away kind of thing, like spiraling. And so I guess, like doing a math contest, peeing all over yourself secretly so that nobody knows, I guess is kind of, I mean, if you ask most people I know, they'd say my emotions are pretty on my sleeve. Like I talk about how I feel a lot, but if I have to, and if it's with strangers, I can completely seal it up, you know?
Yeah, I do. Very interesting. Tell the listeners, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Southern California, so like Orange County, and then moved to LA. So that's where I started off doing music in the LA thing, which felt kind of like it wasn't right for me at the time. But now I'm like, oh, that was probably kind of feel like I fit better there than I do in the Seattle thing. So yeah, LA is a good place to start getting your feet into the industry and stuff.
And your parents, what did they do?
My dad, he's a retired engineer, electrical engineer, and my mom was mother of 4. And so I had a traditional upbringing and I had 2 older siblings too, who also were like second set of parents sort of to me that were quite a bit older. And then I got to be a big sister as well to my little sister. So we had a big family with lots of mentors, I guess, in it, like my older brother and sister.
Yeah. So you're a parent now, yeah?
Yes.
Being a parent, are you raising 4 children?
No, I'm raising 1. Okay. It feels like I'm raising 4, but I'm raising 1.
How did your parents do it?
I don't know. And I mean, I actually just did my very first chaperoning last week for my daughter's kindergartner. So I just went and did their pumpkin patch, and they gave us a couple of kids, 5 kids to keep an eye on. And I was just like, I don't know. How do you keep an eye on 5 kids in a pumpkin patch and stuff? I don't know how people do. My husband also comes from a family with 5 kids. And we're just like, 1 feels like so much, but it's obviously everything's so different now.
Right.
The kind of relationship you're supposed to have with your kid, or that you're inclined to, the books you're supposed to read.
Right.
It's such, I don't know. I feel like, it's like this. Yeah, I'm completely engrossed in my child all the time, and I can't imagine how that would work with more than 1. It would be like some polyamory or something, you know?
Sure. Your relationship with your mom and dad, what was it like whilst growing up in LA?
It was very healthy and peaceful. I feel like it was, it was probably before the era where you're like best friends with your parents kind of thing. So like they were very much the grown-ups and they hung out with their grown-up friends, and me and my little sister would do our kid stuff. But yeah, I also had that added benefit of the older siblings, and my brother got me into music. My older sister would teach us piano and crocheting and stuff like that. And yeah, I mean, I almost wish that I had been able to learn more things firsthand from my parents instead of it feeling like they were always taking care of us financially and food and health and taking us everywhere. But I know now the relationship I have with my daughter, for better or worse, is like we're like best friends. We're like in love with each other, Yeah, maybe it's the single kid thing too, where it's just like, let's give you all the love that there is, all the ideas, all the creativity. But I mean, everything about my childhood was very happy and comfortable. And I wanted to learn piano. So my parents signed me up for piano lessons, and they just kind of waited for me to say what I was interested in, and not like, you should do sports or you should do this. It was like, I want to do ballet. I want to do piano. I want to take tennis or whatever. That kind of let us lead our own, follow our own whims, except that we were also a very academic family. All four of us, it was like, do your homework. That's the most important thing. All of us were kind of like honor roll kids.
Oh, okay.
So that was one of the main takeaways, I guess, from my childhood, was a big emphasis on good grades versus like being an athlete or something like that. Different families have different strengths. And I think everyone in our family was kind of a little intellectual.
Did you like that atmosphere? Did you seem to thrive in that environment? Or did you feel a lot of pressure?
No, I don't remember feeling pressure. I think that because most of the academic stuff came pretty easily to me, I'm glad that was the emphasis. If my parents had wanted me to be like a soccer player or something, I probably would have failed pretty badly, So I got to follow the musical bug, and I also got to do tons of reading. And it was only when I was a little bit of an older student that I realized that I was kind of a nerd and felt a little self-conscious about that. Yeah. But it was like my own choice. Like I was competitive. It was important to me to do well and to tutor my friends and all that kind of stuff. And it did mean, less parties or less boyfriends and all that kind of stuff growing up. And I also skipped a grade, so I was extra young and small growing up. So that was another thing. I was the youngest, smallest all the time, which is not as bad for a girl, I guess, than a boy. But, just last to learn to drive, all that kind of stuff of all of my friends.
So you have your mom, you have your dad.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me and the listeners an attribute, a characteristic or trait that you've acquired from both of them that you apply to your life today.
But I do think my mom is very warm. She easily makes friends and would help nurture our friendships and bring people into our lives and stuff. And I'm trying to do that very much for my daughter, especially with the whole COVID universe. It was like, I have to make friends for her now that, she lost 2 years of friend making skill time. So there's that. I feel like I get a lot of my sensible planning stuff from my dad. He would like draw a map if I was going to go somewhere and like tell me, well, if you go this way, it'll be less miles. But if you go this way, you'll have less stop signs or something, like very, very specific. My dad used to keep charts of all of our heights. He'd keep charts of how many kids would come to the house on Halloween and like what times they would first arrive and last arrive.
Oh my goodness.
Pictures on different days of the year as it fluctuated. And I feel like I have some of that interest in, just like minutia, data, all that stuff. And one thing I didn't really get to say about my parents, I guess, is I don't see them very often anymore because I live in a different state, but I feel like the intimacy between us is a lot greater than when I was a kid, which I guess is kind of normal. When you grow up, it's like, we're a lot more, I don't know, we just feel more like friends. Like when my dad cries whenever I leave and stuff, it's like the only time I've really seen him cry whenever I have to fly back home is, I don't know, I'm really appreciating the that thing that happens when you get older and you can identify with your parents. Like, we're all grown-ups now, so yeah, it's just a different kind of thing than when you're like the kid and you don't want to be in trouble, or, you know.
Or the teenager that just says, yeah, dad, yeah, mom.
Right.
Yeah.
Don't understand.
Right.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Okay, so you mentioned that you acquired some musical taste through older brother, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So for me here in the Bay Area, we had a great station called Live 105. I mean, they would play Wild Swans, Depeche Mode, Ministry,
Mm-hmm.
the Chameleons, all that stuff I love. It really opened my ears to a different world. And my brother played a huge role. So you mentioned your brother.
Mm-hmm.
What bands were you starting to gravitate towards that were really opening your eyes and ears?
I mean, yeah, I feel like I had a lot of little kid tastes. Like when you say junior high, I think Paul Abdul or something.
Oh, yeah.
But I also had my brother making sure I was also into some cool stuff as well. Like I was listening to OMD and Depeche Mode also. And then even when I was a kid, yeah, I have these mixtapes that are my brother would make me mixtapes. He had a big vinyl collection and we'd like pick out all the stuff that I liked. And there'd be, you have some David Bowie, but you also have Madonna. And there's constantly that, like, what do I think I want to be when I grow up and do music, which was all like Cyndi Lauper and stuff, versus what am I actually maybe going to be more like. And what else was I really into? I mean, I never really listened to like New Kids on the Block and Guns N' Roses were the bands that all the other people in my generation were listening to growing up, I feel like. And I was kind of more into the whatever's happening in England, probably.
Yeah.
Still listening to Beatles and Elton John. My dad always had vinyl playing in the house also, Pink Floyd.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we had lots of everybody in the family had good taste in music and sang a lot in the house and played piano and stuff. So there was lots of that. But as I got into high school, it got a little bit more indie and the Smiths, Cocker Twins.
Yeah.
Singly, I'd say the band I was the most into ever was U2, which I can't quite like. Now I'm like, U2. My brother's like, you're not going to be in this phase for long. This is a temporary thing. But he took me to go see them. He was like, I'm not really into these guys anymore. I went to college and I got sick of Joshua Tree. But that was like, I was obsessed with them. Like I would cry if I missed a show or like stay up all night trying to video their videos,
Yeah.
Yeah, I was crazy about U2 for a while.
All right. So that gives me a sense of your musical taste.
Yeah.
I know there's some listeners who are familiar with your work and they want to know, and I want to know the answer to this question. Where the hell did you get the wonderful vocal pipes? Who passed that down?
Well, that's nice to say. I mean, one of my things is like, I always thought like I wouldn't be able to be on one of the vocal competition things or something because I'm quiet and, I'm not like some belted out and show off kind of a singer. But I think, having sung so long, I feel like I filtered out a lot of bad stuff really young. Like I started recording myself singing when I was like 6, doing Snow White or Everly Brothers songs onto the cassette player. And when we first started tracking Trespassers stuff,
yeah,
I would listen back and be like, oh, my voice sounds so much lower than I thought. Or, the first Anchor, the album that I can't even identify with of our first record, when I listened to it, it's like I had to hear that album to be like, ooh, I don't want to do that again. And get little bits of other people's voices out of my voice, like the Cranberries and Sinead O'Connor and, stuff that was in there. And I feel like, when I hear my voice, I hear Lisa Germano and Tom York. That's what I hear. And Madonna sometimes. And actually, Dave Fridman, when he was mixing one of our albums, he's like, you sound like Madonna. And I was like, I do. Nobody knows because I was obsessed with her for like my entire elementary school. But only like in little things that I do. Not obviously, I'm not, that wasn't my goal to sound like Madonna.
Sure.
But I mean, like Tom York is a guy, so I don't know if people can see how much I steal from some of his, not intentionally, but just like I've sung along with Tom York more than anybody else ever listening. And he sings in a range that's kind of female, so I can like hit those notes.
Oh.
And Lisa Germano, on the other hand, I don't know if you're familiar with her, but she's got like a real raspy, kind of sultry, lower female voice that I like. When I'm sick, I sound a lot like her. And I definitely feel like some of that got into, she's who I was listening to, one of the only solo female artists that I was listening to when I first started writing music.
Yeah.
So I feel like that really, like Geek the Girl, Slide, those albums were really influential. And Matt in Trespassers was listening to a lot of U2 and Red House Painters and Mazzy Star. So I wasn't actually like the Mazzy Star person, but I got kind of brought into that, and the melding of my voice plus his guitar kind of, we get compared to that a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was kind of just because it was like when you start playing music, people are like, this is what you sound like. And then you start listening to all those bands, which is kind of dangerous. Like you sound like Innocence Mission, or you sound like Mazzy Star. And the stuff I'd been listening to was more, Lisa Germano, and later Radiohead. It was just like Radiohead's the band for me, you know?
Yeah. All righty. I've asked musicians and I've told them, do you understand you have a gift? Do you understand you can do things that people aspire to do, whether it be in their car, in the privacy of their bedroom, whatever it is? Playing a guitar, banging on the drums, using their vocal pipes. Are you aware, Lott? You know where I'm going with this?
Well, yeah, my husband's going to be like, you sound so stuck up. Okay.
But I mean, I understand there's a point where like, okay, do you sometimes think after putting songs together, like, damn, I do have something to really offer to this world. It is a gift.
I feel like I can answer that.
Okay.
Because I haven't really done a lot of music for the last 6 years. There's like the gulf in between. Like I haven't been on stage since the week I got pregnant, etc. Okay. And then I kind of stopped writing songs for the most part and just started writing poetry.
Yeah.
I like my voice. It's not the same as it was when I was, you know, not sleep deprived and all that kind of stuff. So I have to try a little harder now. It used to be like, oh, singing's easy. Now it is a little bit of work. I feel like my voice sounds like me. And that's part of, you know, what I like about it. Like I hate affectation in voices, and I had plenty of it, but I feel like it got to a place where it's like, this is the genuine, kind of around Different Stars. It was like, I'd been doing music a lot before that, but around that point, it's like, this is when I became me. It takes a long time, I feel like you're in your 20s, maybe, when you're like, this is who I actually am.
Sure. Okay.
The songs were all kind of, before that, you write about what would it be like to be heartbroken? What would it be like to be in true love? What would it be like to be dying? What would it be like? Yeah. And then you get to the point in life where your heart has been broken. You have cheated on somebody. You have, you know, had a dangerous like brush with whatever. You have had a terrible injury. And then the songs become non-hypothetical and authentic. Not that there's anything wrong with being a fictional songwriter either, which is what you start. Everybody has to start off like that because like you're too young, you don't know. And then, you know, then it's almost like you're writing most songs for one person in particular to hear. Like this song is for this person, whether you're mad or you're trying to seduce. And then it gets a little, some of the songs are more general, where it's just like, I guess to answer your question more, I feel like the gift part comes from when you can write a song in like 4 minutes and then you can record it in a half hour, which is kind of what I tried to do for most of my solo stuff. It's like, I just wrote it. It came to me all in one piece. Yeah. I sat down in my room with like very cheap gear, like one microphone, one preamp, whatever. And I made a song that I think captures this, like the, you know, your moment when you're getting the song. I've heard musicians talk like that before, like, and Damian Gerardo being a friend, he always is like, the song just comes, you know, like it visits you or something. And I don't know if I'd go that far for myself, but it's like a sentence. It's just like finishing a sentence. Like it starts and you know where it goes. And I don't have that anymore. So I could see that it was, and maybe I'll get it again. But it's like I used to do everything so quickly. And again, I hardly had to work. I was like, I've been doing just the music thing for a long time. I didn't have a kid. I didn't have a wrist injury or a shoulder injury or some hearing loss, all of which I have now. And so it was, you're living in sort of a bubble of, I'm going to follow my creativity. I'm going to walk around and write the lyrics, and then I'm going to go home. I'm going to track it. And there it is, And so, yeah, I feel like songwriters who have that immediate connection to their own song, and I recorded my own music and produced it myself. So it's like, this is the package. This is how it came to me.
Yeah.
That feels like a gift. When you're laboring over music and trying to find words and trying to get your voice to hit that note, it doesn't really feel like a gift at all. It feels like a struggle.
Yeah.
And for me, that part, then I'm just like, oh man, I have to get back to that thing. And it'll visit me again sometime. But in between, yeah, so now I can look back and be like, wow, Anna Lynn was a inspired person for a while and was able to capture a lot of my life and most of like the heartbreaking moments of my life in songs, or just like all my fears are like in a song somewhere. All of my loves are in a song somewhere.
It was a beautiful answer.
Thanks.
And it's very clear to me. And thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
You mentioned something about loss of hearing.
Yeah.
How is that affecting you?
Not that much yet, but I haven't tried getting on stage. So I have a weird thing that happened. I mean, when I first had my child, and it might have happened anyway, but I don't know, after the first year and a half of like night wakings, crying, when a baby cries, you pick them up and you hold them, and she would just always left ear. So my left ear started ringing, and I just had some tinnitus that wasn't really bothering. It wasn't like a sound issue, except I realized one night I couldn't hear birds in my left ear anymore. I could only hear them in my right ear.
Yeah.
So I was but it wasn't really interfering with anything. So I was like, oh, my right ear is my good ear now. And then 2 years ago, I just woke up in the middle of the night and I could hardly hear anything out of my right ear. And it felt like it was something in my ear. I thought I had an ear infection. I was put on prednisone or whatever and took that in case it was just some kind of terrible virus, but never came back. And I've been to the ear specialists, and basically they said, I can hear every frequency when you combine my two ears together. So I can still hear everything. If I put headphones on, I've recorded and mixed some songs since this happened. I can hear people talking to me just fine, but I can only hear some of the sounds here and some on the other side. He's like, your ears are going like this and like crossing each other on the frequencies, which they said was not normal. Usually you just like lose all your bass unilaterally or multilaterally or whatever, multilaterally. But yeah, so I can still hear everything. I just kind of have to focus sometimes, like say it again. I'm going to look at you and I'm going to really listen. And now I can hear everything. So hopefully it stays like that and doesn't get worse, because for now I can still sing in tune. I can record myself. I'll probably have somebody mix me next time, because I don't know if the stuff I'm mixing sounds weird to other people.
Has it affected your self-esteem at all?
A little, because I mean, part of the frustration having a little kids get very upset when you don't understand them. Yeah. So there's been a lot of times where my daughter is like weeping because I didn't hear what she said properly. Right. And it's not because she doesn't make sense or she doesn't speak well. Because if we're a little kid, they're still like learning their language and stuff. It's like, why can't you understand me? And I'm like, because I can't really hear, and it can be really emotional to me, because it's her frustration is temporary, but mine is like permanent. And I have to have my husband speak on a certain side of me for me to really understand what he's saying. His voice is harder than hers for me because of the deep stuff. So, or if I go to the dentist and they're always on one side of me and they're like doing stuff, I'm like, I actually can't really hear anything that they're saying. That's very frustrating. The other side, I would hear what you're saying, but not on this one. So, but I mean, Yeah, so long as I can, for now, it's like maybe I'll need some assistance someday with my hearing, but right now I don't feel like I do.
Okay. I want to talk about a few songs, if you don't mind.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to listen to these tracks.
Okay.
And this first track, you have done something that I think very few artists have done. You have done cover songs in a way that I find extremely spellbinding, interesting. You have added color and light to them that it's kind of like what Mark Kozlik from Red House Painters and Sun Kill Moon, like you wouldn't even know the original tune.
Right.
So here is a track from the 2011 album called Stolen. This track is so near and dear to my heart. It's because it's from one of my favorite bands of all time, Trashcan Sinatras. And when John Douglas, singer-songwriter, guitarist extraordinaire from that band, sings this song from the album I've Seen Everything, it is pretty damn meaningful, and there's a great story behind it. When I heard your version, I was completely mesmerized because I didn't think anybody could touch that song. And it's so great to have these two different versions. So we're going to take a listen to your version, Trashcan Sinatra song called Earlies. Let's take a listen.
Cape Brick Road in summer 1981. We shared a house and garden at the height of all the bombing on the run in busy, hazy London. Through t-shirt breezes, walking off her work, County Kilburn sun. Weekends free, just wash away the dirt of busy, hazy London. The night grew cold, the town's as old. Da, 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 da.
So how the hell did you pull this off?
I don't know. The Stolen album, I mean, my brother got me into Trashcan Sinatras, and so that was very much like a childhood. Well, I mean, I wasn't that young, I guess, but high school, college, listening to that a lot. Most of the songs that I cover, I don't listen to the song before I cover it. Like I know it from being a fan. So unless like later on, the later covers that I did on request, like covers 1, covers 2, those were songs other people picked for me for the most part, most of which I loved anyway. But the songs on Stolen were like, I know all these songs. I'm going to sing it in whatever key I hear it in my head, and didn't reference the original one. So it's like that song, I just loved it. I always thought it was like this beautiful song that nobody else I knew it, And so even though they're a big band, they're very popular, they're a lot more popular than me, but it was sort of just like, I'm going to expose some people to this song. And I feel like when I tracked that one, I was out in Texas working on the first Ormonde record, and I had brought my green bullet microphone, which is totally directional. So you can sing into it and it doesn't catch any of the other sound around you. So Robert was in the other room working on something on our record, and I was just like sitting there with the little mic right in front of me, tracking the vocals for that one. And I think I already had the guitar recorded before I came out. I don't know. I think it was just like, I love that song. It kind of almost makes me feel like a kid for some reason. That song so reminds me of being younger and enjoying it. And it kind of flows like, to me, that song, their version is almost like watching a slide projector show of all your childhood photos or something. I don't know. So it has I don't know. I just have a very nostalgic relationship with it. So thank you for the compliment, but I don't even know. I was just like, I love this song. I'm going to sing it, and I didn't really have anything in mind or any plan.
I've heard from people in covering certain band, a la Trashcan Sinatras, it sounds like it could be easy, but it's not. And I think with this song Earlies, which, as I mentioned earlier, it's a gem of a tune.
Mm-hmm.
But what I am so attracted to in your version is that obviously it's your vocals, it's your work, but you have identified and placed a stamp on it that is truly, it's yours. That part, I'm not going to sing it. It would, the listeners would get off this, stop listening immediately. But that part where, na, 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 na.
Mm-hmm.
I would be terrified to sing that part because to me, that is one of the most beautiful aspects to that song.
Oh, yeah.
So did you feel any of the pressure to honor this song?
No, I mean, and at that time it was like, I might never put it out. I was just kind of recording some covers for fun here and there. And at some point I realized I had enough that maybe I was going to put out a covers album. So it was like the Vic Chestnut one was for a specific project. And then most of the other ones, it was just like, I felt like doing this song today. So it was really with that, this isn't my real band. This is just me having fun. And definitely not knowing that one day I would be known as like the covers girl that I'm trying to get away from. But I love, especially it's like sometimes I'm just like, I want to sing this Chili Peppers song, or I want to sing this whatever from 20, 30 years ago that's still in my head. I've been wanting to do Sad Eyes by Bruce Springsteen for like my whole life. And I just like haven't actually gotten around to doing it. And then you don't want, like, I don't need another covers album, but I just love singing other people's songs. And especially when you're a little bit in a writer's block thing, it's just like, today I'm going to record one of my favorite tunes.
Yeah.
But when you said, yeah, that beautiful part of the song, the wordless part is like, that's always the best part, right? Of almost every song. And I probably do it more than I realize, where it's like the chorus is just, ooh, or, wordless chorus by My Morning Jacket. There's a lot of really great songs where it's just some oohs. I got a lot of those. But yeah, or like the end of Katie's song, Red House Painters, which I also have covered. It's all about that little melody, at the end of the song. That's what makes the song incredible instead of just really nice. Is the
for that one, that 4-minute outro.
Yeah, go on forever and ever and ever, and you just want it to go like Hey Jude, or just play it for 20 minutes.
All right, can we listen to a Trespassers William song?
Sure.
I do like the name of that band, by the way. This is from Different Stars. I don't know when the last time you listened to this. 2001, 2002?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Both.
Post 9/11. My favorite track is track number 4. This is Alone. Let's take a listen. tell us a little bit about Alone.
Alone is one of those weird ones where it's like, I would probably cut it off the record now, listening to it. Well, you just made a face. But I think a lot of people seemed like that one is one that they really like. And that's how I got on the Michael Brothers album, was they heard that song. And
okay.
I mean, there's a lot of that's to do with, again, the guys doing what they're doing on that one. That was a weird little song. Like, I'm almost embarrassed about it, my contribution to the song. And some of the lyrics mean different things to me, I think, than they do to other people. That makes me uncomfortable to listen to. Some of the Trespasser songs, I Don't Mind, is another one where they're like, both of those ones are very much about like female victimhood, kind of, that I don't know if people really, for me, that's what they're about. People maybe are just like, oh, it's just a little song about like, you don't love me as much as I love you or something, but it's a little bit different for me. So I feel weird about that song now.
Interesting. So what do you mean female victimhood?
Well, with Alone, I feel like some of it was just like your body not really being who you are. It's just something that people use.
Right.
I Don't Mind, which was more recent, so I can like identify with it more now, was kind of specifically for me about the music industry. All of the guys, it was always guys, the people who were working on this for you, and the way that they would deconstruct you, judge, make comments about how you should be like this, you should do this. So it sounds like a love song, but again, I even say like, you're like a lover in that at the beginning. Like, it's not about a love person. These are all the other people who make you feel like you're just like a checklist.
Yeah.
And don't do this, but you do this. I wish you need a new hairdo, or you should be doing this or dancing, and how it's a lot like, I don't know, just like the guys have very specific things that they want to take from you, just dispose of the rest of it, which I don't have as strong of a feeling now. That I feel like I'm a stronger, mature woman now. But at the time, it was just like, I'm just a little girl, and everybody just is like taking stuff or pushing me on stage when I'm ill. And like, but we want to play the show. And I would get really hurt by it. Like, you don't care if I'm going to sound terrible and be embarrassed. But because you guys have some friends coming out from, now I probably sound like I'm getting bitter. But no, there's just been a lot of, it's funny how people can see you as, this works, this doesn't, and maybe we all see each other that way. You don't have to be a musician. People probably do that with their partners all the time, of like, I love this, but I don't love this, I think now I feel like me and my body and my voice and all that, like, we're all the same person. But when you're younger, you kind of don't. Like, you can disconnect and be like, oh, you only like this part.
Yeah. And
Alone's kind of partly about that for me, of just like the disembodiment of the parts of you that are taken by other people.
Yeah. This, I feel like, is a great time to go a little bit deeper into your work. I'm going to spin a wheel. It's going to land on a chapter title from the book, The Creative Act of Way of Being, written by Rick Rubin.
Okay.
Here we go. Okay. This comes from the chapter, How to Choose. Every piece of art consists of a series of choices, like a tree with many branches. Our work begins with a seed, which sprouts a trunk of the core idea. As it grows, each decision we make becomes a branch splitting off in a new direction, growing finer and finer in detail as we move further out. At each fork, we go in any number of directions, and our choice will alter the final result, often radically. How do we decide which direction to take? How can we know which choice will lead us to the best possible version of the work? The answer is rooted in a universal principle of relationships. We can only tell where something is in relation to something else, and we can only assess an object or principle if we have something to compare and contrast it to. Otherwise, it's an absolute beyond evaluation. So what are your thoughts on hearing that? How to choose?
Well, I've definitely been in that position where, I mean, like the Trespassers William songs, I would start it, I'd write the song alone, not the song alone, but alone, I would write a song and bring it to the band. And then if, Matt thought of something, I would usually bring like 2 or 3 songs. Maybe 2 of them were good. Maybe one of them was good. And, I'd kind of get to veto if something really wasn't my cup of tea, but everybody would sort of take it in where they were doing it. And you kind of become a organism together over time where it's like, well, if I do this, then Jamie's going to play this on the drums and then this and that. And we would have debates about whether we should make the chord weirder or something, because I'd always use just sort of the basic chords. And I mean, because most of the time, like when we mixed different stars, Matt and I both sat in the room for 4 days with the mixer, and every decision was a democracy and all that kind of stuff. So I feel like the song for us, I mean, it never grew very far from what it's originally was at the millions of rehearsals where we would play the song. And we just tried to capture that. And then there's none of that doubt that comes with, should we have added those strings or that, weird effect? Other than a few, I think just like this, which is on some versions of different stars, we accidentally, somebody in the studio played it back at the wrong speed. And we were listening to it and we were like, this is sounding cool. We didn't realize yet until my voice came on that it was like, this is not, we're playing it back wrong, because we were doing everything to tape and stuff. And so then I re-sang the song over the slowed down version of the song. So you can kind of tell with some of the drum stuff, but otherwise you can't really tell. It's just like a little bit. And, we could have not done that. We could have kept the original version. I haven't had much, I guess the core answer to what you're saying is I don't usually let my poems or songs anymore grow very far from the original seed. Where if I wrote a poem, I usually would just have it be the exact original way I wrote it in the middle of the night, half asleep, never edited it, put it out in a book. I'm only just now starting to edit things so that they won't have such a short lifespan for me, where I'll feel like, okay, for 2 years I was okay with this poem and I changed it a little bit in time to make it something more everlasting for me. But like I said, most of my songs, or the Lotte Kestner songs, were tracked in a day. But then I mixed them for like 2 years. So it was like, I got my little thing, tiny little sounds, like which backing vocal should be how loud and how far should it pan and what reverb should I use, or should I add a little sound? Does it need another tiny keyboard? Those are the things I'd fiddle with that don't really change the song very much. They're just the little textures around the outside, but it's not like I'm going to change the lyrics. I'm going to change the chords. I'm going to add a whole extra section. Doesn't really happen for me. And the last time I can ever even think of something like that was like when we did Having, the label really wanted us to have somebody else produce it. We were going to produce it ourselves. So we made a short list of like the 3 best producers in the world. And we're like, those are the only people that we'll work with, And Dave Friedman was the one that was interested. And that's the only album where it's like I have that conflict of it, it's kind of a Dave Friedman album. It's kind of it feels less like an Annalyn work of songs that I wrote in my bedroom. A lot of people have complained about the distortion on it. It's why there's no vinyl. People try to turn the album. People have written me complaining about how could we let this happen to the record. And I still think that he made and saved many of the songs on the album that would have been otherwise boring.
Yeah.
And he got all of us really excited about it for a while, but it also makes it like I have an intimate relationship with the songs, but not with the album now, because it doesn't feel like my record. It feels like a big group effort. Whereas everything else I've ever put out feels like it's still me in my bedroom.
Sure.
Not me with a wall of gear, and magical, fancy things. And I wouldn't give up those 9 days we spent in New York for anything. Right. But it's sort of just like, ooh, should we have done that? It wasn't really an option because it was sort of like a label requirement. When we first did Lie in the Sound, which was like the first really good thing that we ever did, I think, we had our friend Eli, who now plays with Father John Misty. He mixed that song. and made it sound fantastic.
Okay.
And I started crying. I was really upset because I was like, why did it have to be better? Like, why did anybody have to fix it and make it sound better than we sound usually? But which is what music recording is. That's what engineering is. But it's like, I didn't even understand that yet. And I cried and I was so mad. Like, they fixed my voice, sort of like, no auto tune, just reverb, just like EQ. Why do I need EQ? And I've been kind of emotional about that ever since. Like, why is it not? Yeah. And I mean, I love the way it sounds now. I'm perfectly happy. Light in the Sound feels natural and very underproduced compared to me now. But just my very first listen, just like the first time I ever saw my face airbrushed, like, and that was like, how could you not love this picture? And I was like, but they fixed me, they like, and it was just, again, just probably like a filter or something, but I was just like, why did anybody have to fix anything? That I just wanted it to just be the way that it is, like the raw thing. So that's kind of what I've been doing as Lotte Kestner for a long time now. It's just like, there's never any fancy effects. I don't fix things. I leave the mistakes in. There's weird creaks and things all over the place. And
Love it.
that's the only thing that I mean, but I don't know if I would love that in other people's music, but I love it in mine,
I think he talks about this in the book. It's called demoitis.
Yeah, but you mean like you'll fall in love with the demo and everything else is like an imposter?
I think so. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I've heard those two words, imposter syndrome, ad infinitum when it comes to these interviews. People, these artists, musicians feeling like at one time or another, have I hit that imposter syndrome?
Yeah.
And how that impacts them. Let me continue to read something on. I want to talk about your poetry in that poem I read at the beginning.
Okay.
He says, if we were to learn anything, it would be to free ourselves from any beliefs or baggage or dogma that gets in the way of us acting according to our true nature. The closer we get to a childlike state of free self-expression, the purer our test and the better our art. Now, this is one man's opinion.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I'm going to read some lines here from the poem. The way that the road, having been beaten by the rain for days, becomes silver and royal, robbed and slick, catching a slice of sudden sun, blinding me with its elongated brilliance. I love that. Eyes opening from a bad dream, cold water on the parched throat, the shiver of touch on lonely skin. Coming back from it is everything. So with this poem, wonderfully written, can you connect it to what I just said about this childlike state of free expression?
Yeah, I mean, I guess this one in particular, which again, it was just, we had terrible weather. It was a really beautiful moment. Went out in the car. I think, what did I write this 2 days ago or something? And yeah, it really was just like, oh my goodness, that silver, the road was all silver because the sun was started to shine. And I went to a coffee shop and I wrote that poem. And yeah, I mean, I guess I've just been kind of thinking about how you can only really cherish something that isn't always there, or yeah, the idea of imperfections and all that kind of stuff, like what we've been talking about. If you're being held all day, it doesn't feel the same as if you haven't been held for a week and somebody touches your arm, Yeah, I guess for me it was, that just embracing also, I mean, I guess I'm always thinking a little bit about aging and injury and all that kind of stuff too, that when you talk to somebody and they are readily sharing all of the darkest, hardest stuff, that you just immediately are close to that person.
Yes, right.
Even this morning I was in a coffee shop and there was an older older couple next to me. I don't know if they were romantic or not romantic couple, but just two people talking. And I just loved that they were just talking about colonoscopies and they were talking about how both their backs had arthritis or whatever. And to me, those kind of conversations sound very romantic in a way. Like they're not all the other conversations you hear of people talking about how cool they are, how much money they have, what their new promotion is, how their kids are doing so awesome. And when people are talking about like, oh, it's really hard for me because I just don't sleep well, or, those conversations that get you truly close to somebody and make you feel like, well, now I can say my thing because you said your thing, and I guess that's kind of what I've always felt like I can do in music, at least. Maybe not in real life, but like if it's a song, you can just get to like the ugly stuff. You say what's unlovable about you or why you don't think things are going to work out for you or whatever it might be. And just kind of, just be vulnerable. And then you can turn it off and go back to smiling at a party or whatever in real life. But in music, you kind of feel like it's an alter ego where you can be more honest.
Right. And I've spoken to musicians where, not naming any names, but they have told me that alter ego, that other side where they can go into the forest of pain and play that role, they prefer that.
Yeah.
That's where they feel a little bit more comfortable in life.
Yeah.
Where some people would be like, I can't go in there. It's too dark. It's too heavy. And for me, in my life, I've always been drawn to the London gray skies of life. The heavy sounds of Slow Dive and Kitchens of Distinction and, all that kind of stuff. Because it feels a little oppressive to me. But that's where I get my light, that source of energy.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it definitely does to me. Yeah.
Okay. In the captivating second half of our conversation with Lotte Kestner, we delve into the vulnerable role she plays as both a musician and a mother. She expresses amazing vulnerability whilst talking about the delicate balance she maintains between her creative pursuits and her personal life, offering listeners an authentic glimpse into her world. Join us as we continue to explore the heart and soul of Lotte Kestner's music and life.
Messed up world will thrill me. I listen
What I'm understanding of this conversation that we just had about artists, musicians being vulnerable, tell the listeners a little bit more about your sentiments regarding vulnerability. It could be with your poems, could be with your lyrics, it could be performing on stage.
I don't think there's any uneasiness for me because I feel like the more vulnerable something is, probably the better it's going to be, or you get different kinds of reactions from other people who can identify with things if they're really true or coming from a place maybe of hurt. One of the complicated things though is, sometimes if something's really difficult to talk about, I will wait. Like the only song that I wrote about the really awful injury that I had that was pretty life-changing, I waited 2 years before I put out a song about that, I think. Or the poems I write are usually kind of like flashback poems. Like I'm talking about, if it's an autobiographical one, it's from something a long time ago.
Okay.
And just some little memory will pop into my head and you'll turn it into a poem. But one of the complicated things, and I talk about this with my husband because he's also a songwriter, sometimes it's a little bit, the only time it's really scary to post something is in terms of thinking of your family, your kid, your husband, wife, whatever, reading it, because they take things really personally.
Yeah.
So do I, but I've had people take things or worry about me, oh no, that poem, are you not getting any sleep or something? And it's well, I am right now, but I wasn't at the time I was referencing in the poem, And so that's the thing. It's you're writing it for yourself and for those the unseen other people who need that kind of message, but the people who usually write you right after, or like your mom or your husband, are like, what was that about, So, and because I like to share things pretty immediately, like the poetry, it's like, I just wrote this 2 minutes ago, here it is. That sometimes I don't share something just because I don't want to worry somebody or upset them, or have someone take it as literal, because even the autobiographical stuff isn't like word for word.
Sure.
True,
Do you ever feel that you being an artist, a musician, the gift that you're giving your daughter is the ability to express yourself, understanding the age at which she's at?
Mm-hmm.
She's not going to be sitting there articulating mom's work. But do you think she's absorbing and sponging up?
I mean, I guess I kind of would like to. I would like to have her see me perform or something, because I can't play guitar. I can't even anymore with my wrist. I can't pick it up and just play for her, but I sing to her all the time. When she was little, she got really excited about like holding my vinyl records with my picture on it and like kissing them and stuff, or seeing my face pop up on the smart fridge for something. But I think like when people ask her what I do, she says she does the dishes, or she stays with me. So I don't think she thinks of me as a musician first, because she doesn't get to see me. She doesn't see me record. Well, she's walked in on me recording a couple of times, I guess, but I usually do that when she's not around. So as she gets older, I'd like to have her, play music with me more, or see me play something, so she can think of me that way, and not like, she just told her class that I'm supposed to pretend like I'm a Bluey actor. I'm like, what does that mean? That's like a cartoon. She's like, well, tell everybody that you like write for the show and you do the voices and stuff. And so, yeah, I don't, I don't know if she sees me as more than a mama most of the time. So, but I'd like her to. We definitely have a ton of instruments in the house. Just she's got a bunch of little things to pick up, and she's written a funny little songs that she does, and I think she'll have a musical environment no matter what.
Tell the listeners how you are handling this social media, what some have deemed as a crisis when it comes to children and technology. Are there struggles right now with this?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I kind of wish, I've voiced many times to my family, like, yeah, I wish that she was growing up in a different time.
Mm-hmm.
We were probably, we didn't let her watch TV until she was 2, or then, she didn't have an iPad until she was 4. And actually, since she started kindergarten, she's kind of lost interest in a lot of that stuff, which is great. So, and part of the way that I deal with it is, if she wants to watch a show, I always watch it with her. I don't like sit her down in front of the TV so we can talk about what she's watching.
Yeah, nice.
And if I don't look at the screen, she's like, Mom, look at the screen. So I probably spoiled her a little bit with my attention span for her. But when it comes to internet things, yeah, like we don't let her go online unless we're all like looking at a YouTube together for a minute. And I don't know what we're going to do about phones and accounts. Like, hopefully that's way off, because that would be weird. I mean, I love that I grew up when there was none of that stuff. Mm-hmm. And I sometimes think of like, there's this little generation, Gen X and that's kind of right around that we grew up with none of that, but we quickly adapted in, early 20s or teen years or mid 20s to have a smartphone and an email address. But it's like, I graduated from college without a smartphone or an email address. And I mean, I was the last one, because I'm like super late to all technology. I'm like, I'm going to put it off as long as I can. So to not date myself that much, like, I think my husband had a phone when he was like 12 or something, or whatever, or something. But I just put it off as long as I could. That I love that, there was no option to record your own records at home. You had to have a label. You had to go into a studio. But now you have to be able to do it yourself. And so there's the adapting generation that got kind of flipped just as we were becoming grown-ups. And my daughter's just going to be in that other one where it's like the schools watch this on a smart screen at snack time. While they snack, they watch shows and stuff. And in kindergarten, and that's just so weird to me. Like half the time the songs that they're doing in music class are not the teacher singing, it's somebody else singing on a screen. And I think that's unfortunate, but if that's the kind of brains that they have now, like that's the only way that they can pay attention or be captivated, that I guess that's just the world we're going to have her be in. And you don't want your kid to be the last kid to have a computer or something, but you also want to keep them kind of pure.
Being a mom, what have you learned about yourself that you didn't realize that was there before? Like I've heard from some people where, I didn't realize how much patience I had, or I didn't realize how, whatever.
I mean, I feel like I've completely changed.
Oh.
I was definitely in a place where for a long time, was kind of getting by on the musician's income and just playing in a bunch of bands, writing songs for a bunch of people, singing on anything for like $50, to not have to have a job. Or I had that job. It's still a job, and going on tour and all that. But everything I had a lot of space for reflection, me time, connecting with my friends, and then writing music at 11 p.m. every night and recording and staying up as late as I wanted and all that. So the shift of being an older parent and an artist parent, deciding to all of a sudden have to be on someone else's schedule all the time, pretty much never have silence, pretty much always have a sore throat from talking and singing and telling stories all day, and having no creative anything left at 11 p.m. And like, I have to go to bed now because I'm so exhausted. I guess like the selflessness, I hadn't practiced that muscle much, except, in terms of relationships, I feel like I've always been pretty generous. But that was like just that one person, or maybe just my best friend gets those little bits of me that I have to give. And now it's like my everything that I had stored up, all of that kind of almost like hypothetical lovingness in me that went into music has gone into my daughter. And kind of also parts of me that used to be applied to art, like perfectionist things. Obviously you can't be a perfect parent, but it's like, I just try as hard as I can. It's like, if this is what I'm doing, I want to do it as well as I can and give her everything that I can. One of the things I've just incorporated, we were just talking about the tech stuff. I mean, one of the worst things for kids is probably how much they see their parents on the phone.
Yeah.
And not even just in like, they're going to want to be on the phone all the time, but it's like, they're not going to feel listened to and important. So we started doing this thing that I read about in a book called PNP time, which is play no phone. And in the morning before school, for the 2 hours that I spend with her before she goes to school, it's like, you will not see my phone except when I'm checking the weather to see if you need like a rain jacket and stuff.
Sure.
That she knows, like, my phone's on a different level of the house and I'm going to be non-distracted. So just like, after being a kind of self-centered artist for a long time, just like, I'm writing a song, I'm doing this, I'm so, taken up with my own universe. It's the biggest change has just been she's the priority. Her happiness is my mission. And obviously I mean, the thing I struggle with is her seeing me as also someone who is happy without, like, I want her to also see me as an independent person who has ambitions and a career, and not just that I had those things. And I'm working on that now that she started school, of like, I'm spending time with my friends again for the first time, and not just writing poetry, because I kind of found like that was all I had time for a long time, was just a little poem here and there, no music gear required. But yeah, I'm still really trying to find the balance between being an artist and being a mom, because I feel like I've pretty much just been a mom for the last few years.
Right. And for mothers, particularly, no disregard to fathers, but from what I've learned is that mothers wear so many different hats all the time around the clock.
Yeah.
It's so easy for them to lose themselves because they devote so much time into the children.
Yeah, for sure.
Are you familiar with Brene Brown?
Yeah, actually a little bit, not super, but I've seen like some TED Talks and stuff.
Okay, great. So she wrote a book, many books. This one is called Daring Greatly: How the Courage to be Vulnerable Transforms the Way We Live, Love, Parent, and Lead. And I want to read something to you, and I'd love to get your response. She has become almost the queen of expressing vulnerability. But what is vulnerability? Vulnerability isn't good or bad. It's not what we call a dark emotion, nor is it always a light, positive experience. Vulnerability is the core of all emotions and feelings. To feel is to be vulnerable. To believe vulnerability is weakness is to believe that feeling is weakness. To foreclose on our emotional life out of fear that the cost will be too high is to walk away from the very thing that gives purpose and meaning to living. So the question I have for you, Lott, is being vulnerable in front of your daughter. Is that something you're very cognizant of?
Huh.
Or do you hide because you want to be the strong mom and this and that?
No, whatever? I don't think I really know how to do that.
Okay.
But yeah, I think I was talking about that before. Like if I'm going to, I feel like I can maybe put off, like I can stay strong for a certain amount of time for her benefit, but then there's a point where, like she's seen me cry.
Mm-hmm.
But then she'll be like, "Don't be sad, mom." So then it's like I have to turn it off because then she'll get upset because I'm sad. Yeah, maybe I do think quite a bit about, it's like it's our responsibility in a way in society to rein in the vulnerability at times. But then, especially if you're an artist or maybe a parent or, a handful of other things, that you do get to celebrate expressing it. So sometimes I used to feel like, oh, well, I can act like, when I used to work in record stores and you have these rude customers and you're like, well, I'm going to put on the little, oh, that's okay, bend over backwards for everybody, because at the end of the day, I get to go to band practice and I get to sing about my feelings. It's like you're supposed to, you're not supposed to be rude to people. You're supposed to, you edit yourself for a fair amount of the day.
Yeah.
Maybe, being a parent is kind of a cool way to do less of that, I guess. Like, I'm still, if you're talking to a grown-up, you don't just immediately let down your guard. With a kid, I find that like I can just be silly with my kids' friends while the other grown-ups are all having grown-up talks. It's like I'm one of the parents that's like playing with the kids. Mm-hmm. And I guess that's kind of a vulnerable thing, because I never played with kids until I had one, really. And now I'm just like, I love kids and I really care about what they have to say. And yeah, it's kind of fun to not like worry about being cool. You don't have to think about that. Like, you're cool with a kid if you're sitting on the ground and you're like messing around with the toys, not if you're talking about Proust, Right. So I get to do that. Yeah, but it's a hard one when you're talking about like actual, I don't know if my daughter's old enough yet for me to really talk to her about my conflicting feelings, especially because most of the conflicting feelings that I have are about finding myself after becoming a parent. I'm not going to talk to her about that. That would be a damaging thing to expose her to. But I do think talking to her about times that I've been afraid or failed at things is helpful and good, because then she knows, like, everybody messes up, everybody spills things, you know.
Yeah.
Everybody breaks stuff.
Did you see the movie Inside Out?
Yes, yeah, we watched the first one together. Yeah.
Movie.
Yeah, it was great. I haven't seen the second one yet. And again, yeah, there's so many of these movies and shows that like make parents kind of choke up, and the kids are maybe just like, why is that happening? Or who is that? But yeah, like when the elephant guy like jumped off of the car or whatever it was, I was like, nah.
Bing bong.
Yeah. That was hard.
Yeah, no, but a really sharp lens into the human experience and all the colors that come with it, right?
Yeah.
And how to accept being whatever color you are feeling at that time. Like, it's okay to feel that.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be sad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's spin the wheel, shall we?
All right.
All right. Ooh.
Uh-oh.
This one is called Cleaning the Slate. Ooh.
Okay.
From the book, The Creative Act, A Way of Being, written by Rick Rubin. So in this chapter, he talks about when artists create something and work on it tirelessly and endlessly, perspective gets lost because they're so entrenched, they can't see anything else. If we train ourselves to step away from the work, truly detach from it, to distract ourselves completely, to dive fully into something else, after being away for a long enough period of time, when we come back, we just may be able to see it as if for the first time. This is the practice of cleaning the slate. The ability to create as an artist and experience the work as a first-time viewer, dropping baggage from the past of what you thought you wanted the work to be. The mission is to be in the present moment with the work. So my question for you, Lott, is when you are so entrenched, immersed in the work, how do you clean the slate? How do you walk away from it? So when you come back to it, you have almost a fresh set of eyes, ears. Is that hard for you?
No, I mean, if you have the luxury of time, like especially the way things are now, it's like if I'm chipping away with things at home, then I agree that is very important to do. Everything sounds better if you give it a day or two, come back. It's like almost like you're having an argument with somebody and you're like rolling with the argument and you just have to like stop and everybody like, what was that all about? And you can, person is who they are again. I mean, I can think of immediately when you're reading that, a bunch of horribly stressful situations where it was like, we have 2 days or 3 days to mix a record. Everybody's going insane because we've been listening to the same song for like 6 hours and everything starts to sound bad. And yeah, I mean, it's awful. People like, band members just start laying on the ground going like, no, And then you have to listen to it in the car. And then you have to listen to what it sounds like on the big speakers and then on the little speakers. And then you have to listen to it off the, all these different ways of what's the right way to mix it. So that drives people crazy. And so I feel bad for people who have to do that as like their job all day. Like my bandmate Matt was like mixing other people's records a lot. And it's just like, I don't know how you can listen to especially somebody else's record all day long. But anyway, now, I mean, some of the songs that I have, if I was having trouble with them, I'd come back after like months or even years and finish them. Like, oh, this is the second verse that it needs. And I wish I'd taken more time with more songs because sometimes I go back and listen. And I'm like, oh, I can see what was good about it, but it's all covered up by this other thing. So I don't have a practice like, oh, every time I do a song, I go for a walk and I come back or anything.
Okay.
Which would be smart. Just usually it's just a matter of turning it off, putting it away, usually coming back maybe 24 hours later. And
Yes.
then, yeah, you see what's good, or you're just like, ooh, that vocal, I thought it was good because I was having so much fun singing, but it's not good, which happens a lot. Like you often can get caught up in a wave of thinking that you're doing something good and it's all trash. So yeah, the perspective is important, but it really is just like, give it an hour, give it a day, give it a week. Some songs need more, and just
Yeah.
reopen that session and see, which is different, I guess, for me, because I do kind of work on my songs in a session.
Okay.
I'm not just like playing it in my room for weeks. It's like I go straight to the computer. So then it's like I literally close the computer, but you still walk around and think about it sometimes.
Sure.
I've been to shows with a pad of paper where I'm
Yeah.
like watching one band, but I'm like trying to write down lyrics for a song that's driving me crazy. And that sometimes if you're laboring for a really long time over something, you're not, or I'm not going to find it. It's like if the lyric is so hard to get, it's like it never comes. And then I'll just like hum there instead or repeat something because it's like it's not supposed to be that hard, you know? That's all. So I guess, yeah, there's like a little time limit. Give yourself a few refreshes. And then if it's still not happening, then it's probably not going to.
Interesting, because what he says is a way to practice keeping a clean slate is to avoid looking at the work too often.
Mm.
If you finish a section or come to a sticking point, consider putting the project away and not engaging with it for a period of time. Let it sit for a minute, a week, or longer. Meditation is a valuable tool for hitting the reset button.
Yeah.
Do you do meditation?
I did when I did not have a kid. I mean, yeah, unfortunately, it's like the time that I have is so minimal
Yeah.
that it's like I have to do this, 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 and this in my time. If I don't get to the gym or if I don't, check my emails or whatever it is. But I did used to. And I don't know how I didn't use it in like the David Lynch way of like, this is going to bring me ideas for things. It was just sort of a way to slow your breathing down and be in your body and all that kind of thing. So I've mostly just meditated to try to remove myself, even also from like physical states. If I was in pain, I would meditate to kind of get through some of that difficulty. So I haven't used it as a tool for writing or anything, but I think it's a good idea. Definitely works for a lot of people.
How has music, being a musician, put you more in touch in the present? How has it helped you understand kind of your place in the universe?
When I was younger, I sometimes felt like I created some drama for the sake of like I kept swirling all my emotions up and sitting in them and blowing things up and almost like making life a little bit into a fiction so that it could be this like semi-authentic, I don't know, life in imitating art and back and forth, which I definitely don't do anymore. That was like like we were talking about, like when you have real things to talk about, you don't have to create some drama. But, well, I mean, one of the things that helps for me, and especially like I've been kind of working on a new poetry book for the last couple years, and most of them I was writing late, like as I'm falling asleep, that fugue state or whatever,
Yeah.
mind. And mostly it would be, I'd remember something I hadn't remembered in a long time with a lot of details. And then you kind of insert a bunch of other accents and things to it to make it into something fresh. And in doing that, especially when it's an old thing, like we're talking about people from the past that don't even exist for me anymore, that you can find the mistakes that you made, you can find the beauty of the way that you persevered, or you can kind of reframe situations and see them like an outsider. And I guess that kind of helps you to understand yourself and other people a little bit better, kind of the way that watching a great movie does too. Some of the like most emotional experiences I've ever had are watching Normal People. Did you see Normal People? The TV miniseries.
No.
I watched that. It totally broke my heart. And then I made my husband watch it with me. Totally broke his heart. And then I read the book too. That's just beautiful, beautiful little 8-episode thing that everybody should see.
Okay, thank you.
Just stuff like that. And I did write. It made me write a lot when I was watching it, because it was just sort of like all the feelings that we ever had when we were young and falling in love for the first time and stuff, and all the bad decisions we made, all of the beautiful moments that we had, all that kind of stuff that everybody can identify with. And it just kind of triggers a bunch of stuff. So, yeah, I guess, I mean, everybody can kind of see the world in an artistic way. You don't have to be a musician. If you watch some people, like my brother, he's the biggest music fan I've ever met. And he was the one person in our family who didn't ever play any instruments.
Okay.
He has more albums. He was a DJ. He has all the music. Like, he loves it more than I do. So he's got the way of caring about songs and songcraft.
Yeah.
That you can have if you're just that type of person. You don't have to be writing songs yourself. But I think, yeah, maybe the way that music allows you to look at the pretty version of your own memories and things too. Like, yeah, I mean, whatever I've tried to hash out, in songs, I try to make them as beautiful as I can.
Yeah.
And maybe it kind of makes my past seem less horrible to me when I look at it. It's like, well, it has a nice chord change over this horrible memory.
Do you connect with people over the internet who tell you a song of yours has truly impacted their life?
Yeah, sometimes. And I mean, sometimes there's been, back in like MySpace days, there was a lot of more mutual friendships that I made with people because we were both just starting out. And it's like, your music really speaks to me and your music really speaks to me. This guy, Sergius Gregory, who lived in Alaska, he and I were in contact a lot during the MySpace era. I ended up putting out his record when I tried to start up a little record label a ways ago, like 15 years ago. And yeah, definitely I've been brought together with friends because of music, but also strangers who just have a song or two. Like, this was the song that made me not want to hurt myself or, get through a certain thing. And obviously that's a great honor and something I'm always grateful to hear from people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we learn what's coming down the line for you, what you're working on, I want to ask this question. So as a female musician, do you feel that comes with any responsibility? Okay, so that's one question. How do you benefit, or how have you benefit by being a female musician in any way that you knew, oh, yeah, the gender helps?
Yeah, well, I definitely can see where I did and didn't benefit as a woman starting out. I feel like the further you get into the industry, it starts to matter less because it's more about like, oh, you were in this band, or these are your connections. You did these things. But definitely starting out, I prickled a lot at, going into Guitar Center and getting treated very differently. Or even Apple stores. I'd go into the Apple store and I'm like, I'm going to buy a computer. Can you help me? Sound guys not asking me how I wanted my sound to be, or when I'd show up with a pedal board, they're like, that's not going to work. You can't run your voice through a pedal board. I'm like, that happened for years. And I was like, it's going to work. I do it every time,
Wow.
And just that kind of nonsense.
Yeah.
But sometimes I played into it. Like, I had the guys change the strings on my guitar and I never learned how to do it. I was just like, change them. And I also like old dead strings. That's just what I like.
Okay.
Like, once a year I'd be like, can you change my strings? So I played into it a little. The way that I benefited was, I mean, this is kind of a bad thing to say, but I felt like I was not a good guitarist, especially at the beginning. I taught myself to play the wrong way, which is why my wrists are all messed up.
Oh,
but,
wow.
I didn't have much that I could do. I didn't have any tricks. And I felt like maybe if I was a guy, I wouldn't have gotten away with that.
Yeah.
Like, it's not okay to just play the regular chords and to not have special chops or anything. They would have found somebody else to pick up the guitar. Instead, the guys were more than happy to be like, do you want to play the electric guitar on this one and just go, do a couple strums? Because it's kind of cool and cute if I do it, So there's definitely that. I mean, the other thing was like just relationship drama. Being a girl in a band, obviously you're going to end up like dating some of the people and that can end up destroying bands.
Sure.
But so that's where I see the not, I mean, I was always the person who took care of the finances in all of the bands and wrote everything. But it wasn't until I started doing my own solo music that I let myself think I could produce it, I could mix it, I could engineer it. Matt was really supportive, where he was just like, why don't you edit your vocal takes? Like, you can come in here and sit with the computer and just like start me off with baby steps until I could do my own albums. And so I appreciate that it was like, if you want to, you can. There was never any like, you can't do this. But as for the responsibility as a woman, I mean, I'm maybe less political than I should be. Every now and then I'll say something about how it's hard, like it's a little bit difficult, like it's hard being a woman this week with what just happened. It's hard juggling motherhood and trying to also have space to be creative.
Yeah.
There's a ton of things that are, I mean, my husband hears from me all the time about about my views on misogynistic roles and stuff and marriages and all of that, and how, I want to be an equal and not, I learned how to cook when I got married and all these other like I've become very domesticated, and it's like, is this good or is this bad? Am I supposed to feel guilty, or am I supposed to celebrate that I can make all these meals now?
What if it's neither?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's probably it, huh? I mean, yeah, it's like being torn between the family model that I grew up in versus the one that everybody around me, like in the neighborhood where I live, I'm one of the only moms that doesn't go to work. So am I supposed to feel bad that I'm not like contributing another Microsoft income to the family? Or am I the cool mom who lets all the other kids come over after school because I am not exhausted and I can play with them, So yeah, I mean, there's both of them. We all just do our best,
Yeah.
And I guess for me, being with my daughter feels a lot more important than writing more music right now.
Right.
I have to find that part of myself and like wake it back up, shock it back to life. And at least the poetic side has kept going.
You're right.
All through, I'm still writing words, but it's just like finding the energy to sing and to open up all the files and stuff. I've mostly just been relying on some bursts. Like, I put out Lost Songs a couple years ago, but that was like me finding old sessions that hadn't been finished and fixing them up, or tracking a new vocal, getting some new things added, but not starting from scratch, which is what seems so daunting to me right now, is starting from scratch.
Sure.
When you just kind of put a big, huge hold, which a lot of people feel even because of COVID. It's just like, I got to dust off so much stuff. And I have even more of that to dust off.
If you don't mind me asking, have you spoken with Alanis Morissette?
No, I haven't, but I've sung along with her. Not in real life. I mean, to her records when I was a teenager.
The reason why I asked this, because I've seen some amazing interviews with her, and her ability to go really into the heart of her emotions with regards to being a mama and the postpartum depression that she suffered for a long time.
Yeah.
And this guilt that came with it. This
right.
hanging back of, oh, should I be this kind of mom? Should I be not? Should I be the strong warrior mom and, just roll up the sleeves? And I guess through this long little statement I'm saying is that you kind of remind me of her in that sense, that you're willing to go into that vulnerable state and share your feelings and question and reflect and do the work that I feel is very important. And yeah, it's just something I when you were speaking, I'm like, yeah, this kind of reminds me of Alanis Morissette.
Yeah, I should watch some of her interviews then. I mean, I didn't have postpartum depression, but I did have some weird a couple years, like when Nico was almost 2, when I stopped breastfeeding, I had like a weird hormonal. Kind of like a breakdown thing. It was very strange because I'd been doing great all through the pregnancy and all after, and I was really happy about stopping breastfeeding. I did it for a long time, and it was just like a few weeks later, all of a sudden, I just had I started getting like anxiety and I couldn't sleep.
Wow.
And went through sort of like a belated postpartum-y thing, which all doctors write off because they're like, well, she's almost 2. And I found a bunch of stuff online about, what were they calling it? It was like a post-breastfeeding anxiety thing that was happening. And they're like, oh, are you upset about not having that connection anymore? And I'm like, no, it's not about that. It was actually like literally my body feels crazy. And I did go into like a depression, and because for the first time, I couldn't really take care of her and needed help for just like a couple weeks until I could sleep again.
Right.
And had to get medicated to sleep. Went through a big thing there. So that was scary because it was like, I have a person who wants me at 7 a.m. and I am having a hard time for the first time ever because, everybody's tired when they have a baby, but you get up. You get up every day. I would just like take a bite of food and it's like, okay, I can do another 12-hour shift. But this was like something different that happened. And it is like, it's an impossibility. Like I'm unable, I'm unfit.
Yeah.
Just for this short time to be that person. And I don't want her to see me like that, And so I had help from my parents and my mother-in-law, and we like got through it. And like a month later, I was back to sleeping again, and my personality came back, but it was very scary. And I mean, I don't even think about it that much because it was like this blur where I didn't sleep for like 2 weeks at all.
No.
And it's like, that doesn't feel good. And it's just like hormones, and it can happen when you get pregnant. It can happen right after the baby, or it can happen apparently after you stop breastfeeding. And it's frightening when you're like not yourself and you have like a little team you have to take care of.
Yeah.
So yeah, scary stuff. So I definitely empathize with women who have the postpartum thing, which can go on for ages. And right when you're supposed to be the perfect angel mama, I mean, there's so much expectation, and like every woman is supposed to immediately be this magical, most important person in the universe,
Right.
And yeah, it's a hard thing, I'm sure, for everybody right after you have a baby. If that boom, now you, yeah, like the hardest job that you have no experience of is now your responsibility.
Yeah.
Figure it out the best you can,
Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Tell the listeners what's coming down the line for you. What are you working on? What can we expect? Maybe anything for the rest of this year or 2025?
This year is probably not going to be anything, but I mean, I put out sometimes I pick little projects for myself. Like I released a few songs last month. To just like things I'd been kind of fiddling with. One of them was a brand new thing, but it was like 1 minute long. It's like I wrote a 1 minute song when I'm putting it out. And then the others, there was a cover, and there was just like some alternate versions of some other things. And I've worked on a couple of collaborations with people on their stuff, and it's not up to me when it comes out. So I'm hoping that those come out. I won't mention who, but something cool that I hope is coming out next year. But the main thing that I have on my mind now is just one of my old friends who, like in passing, our bands used to play together a long time ago in Seattle, contacted me to try to collaborate. And we had a little 2-day songwriting boot camp thing like a month or two ago. We're going to work on it again next week. And it's just a very different sound. It's because he plays mostly like Rhodes and vibes. And so it's kind of more like post-rock aesthetic, and kind of like I'm imagining it maybe being a little bit like Moom. At first I was like, nobody's done this before. And I was like, Moom kind of did that, where it's like the girly vocal with these kind of deep, could be just good instrumental music kind of stuff. So I'm hoping that that brings out some new songwriting channels for me. I've only like he's writing a lot more than I am right now, so I'm feeling guilty
Yeah.
that I haven't quite caught up, but I have some ideas and it's just fun to be, you know, whatever I do probably needs to be some kind of collaboration next because I need to be pulled out of the writer's block and I have my new limitations with my hands and stuff. So having somebody else who wants to create together. So hopefully that's going to be like the next thing that comes out.
Fabulous. Where can people check out your work?
I have a lot of stuff on my Bandcamp that isn't anywhere else, just like all the little extra things inside, thought, unfinished, unmastered kind of things. And then everything's on all the usual. I do all of the big conglomerate things. So you can go to Spotify or Apple Music and all that stuff too. And for poetry, I mostly just share stuff on my Instagram. And then I have 3 books. And then I'm working on one now too. The rest of the stuff I just put out. I put out my own records these days. I put out my own books. I put out my own whatever. And just to get it out there.
You have a lot of trades, a lot of hats, a lot of skills. Rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
Yes.
Here we go. Currently, what is your favorite beverage to drink?
Well, I guess I'd say matcha. The first thing that came to mind was bourbon, but I'll say matcha. Depends on the time of day.
What does the word friendship mean to you?
Hugs, crying, talking.
Who is one of your favorite Disney or Pixar characters?
I'm into Merida right now from Brave.
From Brave. Nice. Which vegetable do you find pretty to look at?
Romanesco? Is that what it is? The one that's all like fractally? Yeah.
Yeah. I believe so. Do you think lying is right sometimes?
Yeah.
Summer or winter?
I'm becoming summer.
Are you a collector of things? And if so, what?
Yes. I mean, I was a CD. I have all my CDs in the garage still right now. So I was like the CD girl. I had 1,000 CDs. I got rid of half of them. And I do like to collect books.
Hamburgers or hot dogs?
Hamburgers.
Long showers or quick baths?
Long showers.
Land or water?
Water.
Are you worried about pollution?
Oh, yeah.
Which do you think is more of a drug? Caffeine or phone?
Phones.
Do you binge watch on Netflix?
Oh, yeah.
A nickname that you had when you were a child?
Linsky Lou.
Would you ever call yourself judgmental?
Yeah.
What chore do you hate doing at home?
What do I hate doing at home? I guess picking up everybody else's messes.
Do you dance alone in your house?
Oh, yeah.
Do you sing aloud in your car?
I definitely do.
Do you know how to do a card trick?
I don't think so.
You have tattoos?
No.
Valentine's Day, underrated or overrated?
I like Valentine's Day. I think people should do more wink wink for Valentine's Day. Yeah, I like it. It's good.
A lyric that you have written that you are awfully proud of?
Should you be scared when I say sometimes I'd want you dead so no one else can have you? That one got some quotes.
At this moment in time, who are you?
The thing I was just thinking was like, maybe I'm Anna Lynn for the first time. Like I've been in bands my whole life and I kind of identified like my friends were just my band. So it's like I was Trespassers William, I was Lotte Kestner, and now I'm just Anna Lynn, you know, and kind of more anonymous. And I am a family lady.
Yes. And from what I've learned in this conversation, this wonderful conversation I've had with you, from my perspective, you're all those things. But what I'm most appreciative of is someone that is willing to share a part of themselves with the listeners in a way that is expressive, authentic, vulnerable. And I just wanted to say thank you for being part of Surprise Cast.
Oh, thanks so much. Yeah, I mean, I love getting things out there and getting it off my chest. I always feel a little like, oh yeah, what is my family going to say or think? What is my husband going to say or think? It's hard not to have that little bit of like because my family's always been really supportive about listening to everything that I write, reading everything that I do. So I always feel like I'm a little bit there was a time where I asked my parents not to come to my shows and stuff because I'm like, I can't be a rock star if you're sitting in the front row kind of thing. So I feel like there's that little voice always of just like, be careful what you say.
All good. We're going to end it with this last quote, but this time we're not going to talk about it.
Okay.
It's a creative act, a way of being. This is the chapter Play. Making art is a serious matter. Harnessing creative energy from source, shepherding ideas into the physical plane, participating in the cosmic cycle of creation. The opposite is also true. Making art is pure play. Thank you for tuning in. My name is W, also known as William, host of the High Art on the Edge page, host of this podcast feature called Surprise Cast. And remember, great music is out there. You just have to keep your ears open. Ciao.
Weightless and lost, my love. I've always wanted to travel